I think it's time we talked about the plans for the Fastback. So around 95, 96, I was driving this car back and forth to high school. Now, we pulled this thing out of the weeds for me to drive at the age of 16. So I've got like an old picture right here that I'll show you guys of the car like kind of sitting back. So we will get into the backstory of this car, and I'll kind of go through everything, talk about all the whole street races and all the stuff that we used to do with this car. But that's not what this video is about. I just want to kind of get some of you guys up to speed. So you've seen me working on the car, but you're probably like, well, okay, that's all cool, but like, what's the ultimate plan for this car? What's it going to look like? What engine's going to be in it? And what are you going to do with it? I've told you guys before, this is not officially my car. This is my dad's car. So this is Papa T's car. So what I'm going to do is probably throw some pictures up for some options for you guys. I don't know if I used it or not, but that thumbnail that you saw is ultimately my dream for the car, but it's not all up to me. As you can see, this car was like a maroon, a burgundy originally. And the funny thing is my dad had a twin to this car. And I'll cover that in the whole backstory thing, but I will show you a picture right now of essentially what this car would have looked like back in the day. Now, my dad painted this car, the one you're seeing in the picture, and put the gold stripes on it. That was real popular back then. This was the twin to that car, meaning it was the exact same spec as that car was, and it was the same color. Since we've owned this car, it's never really been road worthy. Although I did drive it in high school, that doesn't mean a whole lot. So first off, let's talk about the color on the car. I want the car gray because somewhere along the line, this car adopted the nickname the Gray Ghost. My dad can't even seem to remember how this happened, but it did. So I would obviously like to put it back that way. When I drove this car in high school, that's what everybody called it. It was known around town as the Gray Ghost. That's cool and all, but originally this car was maroon. My dad wants to paint this car back the original color and maybe tweak it ever so slightly, like pick a color that's very similar but a little more modern, maybe something like that. Possibly do some different color stripes or something like that on it. I don't know yet. But if I'm being completely honest, the sky's the limit on this, guys. We can do whatever we want to do. And some of you guys may have some cool suggestions, you know? I mean, hey, we're up for whatever. So the color is still kind of up in the air, but more than likely it's going to be between those two. So next up, let's talk about engine options. This car has a 289 4-barrel original engine that came in it. We have that engine. It's over at my dad's house right now. As far as I know, the engine should still run. It probably needs to be pulled apart and at least cleaned up, but I mean, the engine seemed to run fine last time. So we've got the 289 that we probably could just clean up and throw back in this car. I'm interested in that option simply because that was the engine that was in this car when I drove it in high school, and I used to do a lot of street racing with this, and it was a very quick car. Won a lot of races, I can tell you guys that. Now, would it be fast in today's times? No, not even close, but it would still be a fun car. If you compare it to some of the cars nowadays, it's not going to make nowhere near the power that these cars do. But that doesn't mean that the car is still not fast and still fun. So in a sense, I want to kind of drop that engine back in here and let's see how it compares in today's times, because it's been over 20 years since I've driven the car. So that's always been intriguing to me to put the 289 back in here. Side note, we don't really care about keeping the car original. That's not our interest at all. We have no intentions of selling this car, so it doesn't really matter to us what we do to it as long as we're happy with it. The other option is we've got a 347 up here, as you all know. It was destined for the Calypso, but it is an option. We could put the 347 in here, nice carburetor, nice intake, and just send it, right? Guys, we would have a short block that could hold 800 to 1,000 horsepower. So that would be really cool if we wanted to, you know, maybe later on fuel inject it, turbo it, or just put a little bit of gas on it. Either way. So that's an option. It's got a fairly healthy cam in it, but it should be streetable either way. And then there's always the option of like a 351 Windsor out of a junkyard. And yes, I already know you guys want to see that. But outside of that, what are the plans for the car? What are we going to do with it? Especially considering it's not really like my car, right? So the car is not going to stay at my house 100% of the time. It's going to be at my dad's house sometimes. It's going to be over here. We're going to take it to car shows. We're going to, you know, drive this thing around the street and try to enjoy it. That's really the main focus of this car and what we're trying to do here. I really don't want to go fuel injected on the car just because I remember this thing being carbureted and just being super responsive. And you hear people mention it all the time, like that car feels raw, like you're connected with it. No, seriously, you truly are connected to this car. It is the only thing that is controlling this car is your foot and your hands. Like, that's it. So some of the things that we have talked about would be like the Hot Rod Power Tour. My sister and brother-in-law, they have a super nice 65 Fastback. I'll show you guys a couple pictures right here of it. And obviously for Takeover every year, that's always going to be something that we're going to try to get to. So I'd love to take this car to that. And if you guys don't know, that's an event that Foxcast Media puts on. A good friend of mine. So definitely want to try to get this car there. It won't make it this year, but hopefully by next year it will. We cut out this package tray back here. So pretty much getting ready for the rear seat bracket, AKA package tray. I can't ever decide which way I want to say it, but either one of those anyway. So that'll be going in pretty soon. I might get out here today and start working on the wheel tubs, cutting those out and getting ready for that. Outside of that, we've obviously fixed some rust up here. As you guys can see, I've still got some more to fix, but I'll get on that here pretty soon. I fixed the rust down here. So all this is now fixed up. We'll have to come in with a little bit of seam sealer, put it in here and smooth all that out, but we're getting there, guys, slowly but surely. I just thought you might want to know what the plans are for this car, so that's really the whole reason for this video. And hope to see some of you guys, you know, at Ford Takeover. I'm not sure if we're going to take this car this year because depending on what kind of situation it's in, if it doesn't have the windshield and the back glass and all that in it, then obviously that's not something we want to take a 7-hour trip with, leave it out in the elements and risk somebody stealing it off the trailer. Like, you don't want to do that. So I guess lastly, let's talk about wheels and stance and suspension. So we just covered that in kind of one little fell swoop here. Wheel options are still kind of up in the air, but I do want to say that I really love these wheels. So these are what we call the Magnum 500 wheels, and I think these are 14s. Yeah, so these are 14s right here. So the plan is to go like 15 by 8 or 15 by 10 in the rear with like a 275/60 or maybe even a 275/50. It just depends on how we squat the car. So we may go with something like this, and then on the front just go like a 15 by 7. So I love these wheels. That's what was on the car whenever I drove it. That, along with, it did have a set of black steel wheels, and we also had the 10s in the back. So we had 15 by 10s in the rear and like 15 by 7s or something like that in the front. And it actually looked really good with white leather tires. It looked like something like out of a movie, I don't know. As far as suspension goes, guys, it's just gonna stay stock. We're gonna replace everything, but it's gonna have a stock style suspension. One of the things that we might do though is the Shelby lowering mod, where you move the control arm up and essentially it just drops the front of the car and it doesn't change the suspension, anything like that. We'll see. I want the car to be low, not slammed, but I want it to be kind of tucked and tough. That's the whole idea. I want it to look stock, low, tough. And as you all know, we have doors and we've got a couple other things. Our next order is gonna be fenders, and hopefully we'll be in body work on this car here in the next couple of months, I'll say. Maybe, if everything goes good. All right, guys, I just wanted to come out here, get you up to speed on what's going on with the car, how we want it to look, everything else. So with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead, wrap this video up, and as always, thanks for watching.